Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom. And today I'm coming with a project for the Inspire, Create, Share challenge group. And I'm on the design team there, and I'm trying to get back into my projects. And this week, or every fortnight, we have a challenge, and this time I've made a card using two-tone flora and amazing silhouettes, and we had a colour challenge. So the colour challenge is the following colours. So we have got Fresh Freesia, Evening Evergreen, Pear Pizzazz and Polished Pink. So lovely colour selection, a couple of really pretty floral kind of colours and lovely greenery. So those are the colours I'm using. Obviously I therefore need, well, I didn't need, but I wanted to use, I needed to use some DSP for this. So I've actually turned to a wash with in Beauty, because that's got Polished Pink in it, amongst other colours. And you can see it's got Merry Merlot as well. Lovely list of colours in here. You can see super floral patterns on the one side and lovely generic ones, and I thought I'd use this beautiful paper here, which is one of my favourites in it as well. I could have used sort of a couple of the others, but I wanted to sort of keep that generic so that the flowers would really stand out from Two-Tone Flora. And Two-Tone Flora is a bundle with stamps and dies. So we've got lovely floral stamps, and just to share, for those of you who haven't seen it, I've created myself a little crib sheet by numbering my flowers and coordinating dies so that I know which one goes with which. Just helps me. As well as the flowers, you've got this super panel die, which I'm also going to be using today. So what project am I going to create with this colour combination? Well, I thought it was about time I did a square joyfold. So I've done a rectangular one, and I've done sort of joyfold, ordinary square ones, and this is one of the diagonal ones. So in this one I use the Fancy Flora DSP that coordinates with the Two-Tone Flora bundle, and I've used the dies that go with the amazing silhouettes as well. So you can see here, and it just opens up to create a fun joyfold, and it just makes a nice change. And here I used, I have to say, one of my least favourite papers from Fancy Flora that it needed using up, so I just kind of used it, but brightened it up with some lovely flowers. So I'm going to recreate this, but using our colour challenge colours. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to do is on this one, hopefully you can see I've actually embossed there using the painted texture embossing folder, but I thought what I would do is I would die cut a panel instead using this beautiful detailed die to allow the colour to come through. So I'll be doing that as well. So I thought we'd start off with some stamping, and you're going to need to repeat this bit of stamping 3 times over. So I'm going to use my Polished Pink first of all, and I'm also going to use my Stampin' Pierce mat as well when I grab it. So these are photopolymer stamps, so I would recommend you use your Stampin' Pierce mat to get a really good image. And because they're 2-step stamps, I'm going to stamp my detail first, then I'm going to stamp my outline, and I'm going to stamp that off first, and then just line it up. Now you will find there are a couple of places where it's really easy to line up, and I'm using that kind of centre. There's like a little gap here, and then I line it up with the outside edge. So that's the flower that we're going to use. While I've got my Polished Pink out, I'm going to do the centres of the little sprigs of flowers like that, and then I'm going to coordinate that with some Fresh Freesia over the top. So with these, if you line up the little centre dots, and it goes in obviously in one of 2 orientations, you should just be able to see where those line up, and they're fun flowers. I put the Polished Pink away. I'm going to grab my Fresh Freesia. So here's my detailed centre, and this is obviously quite pale, so by the time you've stamped it off, it is still very pale, so I'm only stamping it off very lightly. And again, I'm just using that centre aperture to create our flower. And then my final two pieces are just one step stamping, as in it's a single image, so it's not layered up at all. So for my little leaf sprig, which I didn't use on my original one, but I thought I'd use on this, I'm using my Evening Evergreen. And then I'm going to use my Pear Pizzazz for my leaf sprigs, like so. So now you want to add your dies to these. So as I said, I'm just using, on my crib sheet I can see that I've, which ones I've gone for. So I want number 4 for my little flower. And just add that to it, and I just use a bit of post-it note tape to hold that in place. My leaves. Apologies that it's so dark on camera today. I'm doing this in an evening. I try not to, because my room is quite dark anyway, so if I have to have the lights on we get all sorts of shadows. Finally, our leaves, large leaf sprig, and then I'm using number 6. I was right the first time. And you'll see that on some of these I've actually put a dot, and that's to help me orientate it. So I've put a dot on both the stamp and the die, so I kind of know that that's the top. Just helps me line it up a little bit more. So I'm going to pop those through my die cutting machine. And now I'm going to die cut a couple of other things. So I'm going to pop my dies, say, repeat that 3 times. Then you want your large die. I've got a scrap of Evening Evergreen, a scrap of my Pear Pizzazz, and I've already added a piece of adhesive sheet to the back there. And I'm just going to use my thanks on there and my outline, thanks from my Amazing Silhouettes as well. So I'm just going to trim that off. Just noticed I've got a little bit of card stuck in there, so let's get rid of that. So that's going to go through our die cutting machine. Done that, I've got my outline and I've got my detailed one. You can see here it's quite fine, but it comes out really easily. Like so. Okay, pop those away. And then what I've done is I've cut a piece of card, and this is about 9 by 9 centimetres. In fact, just a little bit over 9. So I'm just going to make sure, double check that. Let's have a look. Oh, it's just a squidge. There we go. So 9 by 9 centimetres, and I've put adhesive sheet on the back here, and I'm just going to pop it through, but inside that kind of frame, so we get those lovely pieces. So once you've put that through, if you lift that up, I'm going to grab my, actually I'll just use my scissors. There we go. As you pop that through, that will lift up, and we'll see whether this has actually worked. Okay, so hoping that what I'll now be able to do is peel that back away. Just take out any loose pieces. And it doesn't matter if some of these stay in actually, particularly because we're going to have the wreath behind it. Now the only thing I'm going to do here is just have to be a little bit careful because it's only a narrow border. I'm just going to gently lay that over the top. There we go. And then if you wanted to, you could just go through with your take your pick, or as I'm going to do here, with some scissors. I would imagine these will actually come out with a pin as well if you wanted to, if you wanted to be really particular. But anyway, I think that's starting to look rather nice actually. So there is my layer for the front of my card. So this is to replace this embossed panel here. Instead we've got this lovely die cut. So now we can start creating the rest of our panel. And I'm actually not going to do I'm going to be careful with the cutler bits. So I'm going to pop my leaves on first, and I'm kind of almost creating like a triangle. And at the top there, I'm just going to be careful not to come too far over the top. Because this flap lifts up, you want to make sure that nothing is going to foul at the top. So we're just going to create, as I say, a trio really. So these have got quite a nice big space. And I can just add those. So where it's going to overhang, just be careful not to add any adhesive there. And then the rest of them are really going to go on using dimensionals. So if we get all of those, you'll see I've created the extra ones. So I'm just going to shape these. And I have got a couple of extra ones just in case I need to fill in some spaces. So I'm going to pop my large blooms in first. They're going to kind of give me my main structure. Dimensionals are already there. So I'm going to pop a dimensional on the back here. Now I'm going to take my just going to pop those. So again, we're just going to kind of create that wreath as we go around. And then, not forgetting, we've got our extra leaves as well. So shape all of those. And we'll use that just to break up those as well. And then we just want to kind of leave a little bit of a slight gap for where our thanks is going to go as well. Okay, so let's pop those in place with our dimensionals. You can see that's coming together now. And then with these, I'm actually going to just grab my mini dimensionals for these, just because they're quite small on the end there. So I'm just going to pop a dimensional actually on the end of on the edge of the leaf, just to lift up that edge. Tucking that underneath, and then we can create our thanks layer to go onto it. And what I've done in the past with this is I kind of start off at one end, so I don't peel it all off in one go. I just lay that on top. Trying not to get my fingers too covered in glue. Probably ought to be using the end of my take your pick, actually the spatula end, but hey, there we go. There we go. So there's my thanks, and that will then, hopefully, I perhaps could have. Okay, that's not too bad. I perhaps could have done it the other way around to make it stand. So add your dimensionals onto the back. There's quite a few sort of largish spaces where you can do that, and you could always cut one in half for some of these narrow pieces, or use some of our 3D strips, or in fact you could actually die cut the back with it attached to our foam sheets if you wanted to as well, and that gives a really great 3D effect. So I'm just going to offset my thanks onto there. And that's our panel ready to go onto the front of our card in a moment. So to create the actual card base itself is really simple. So I've got a piece of card which is 13 by 26 centimetres, and I'm just going to score that at 13 centimetres. That makes our basic card base, and then we're going to cut diagonally across the front. So just line up the score line and the bottom tip of your card and cut in half diagonally. So that's our card base, and we're going to want some DSP to go on there. So our DSP is 12 by 12, and if it's directional as this one is, just make sure it's in the right orientation before you cut. And so I'm going to cut that from top left to bottom right. Now I'm cutting into a point, so I'm going to start from the middle and cut outwards. And we've now got a piece for the inside of our card and a piece for the front of our card. The next piece that we've got is that front flap. So that is 19 by 9.5 centimetres. So again, I'm just going to score at 9.5 as well. And then I've got a piece of cardstock which is white, which is 9 by 9 to go on the inside as well. So now we're up to our layering. So I'm going to add my pieces of DSP. Just the border, as you can see there. And do the same on the bottom and the front. Just layer that onto the front like so. So now with my polished pink, Now with this is actually going to go into the centre of the card, and you'll find if you sort of centre it, you'll be fine. But what I want to do is, if at all possible, line it up with that diagonal as well. You don't want that diagonal to foul, so you can see that actually is lining up well. So I can just pop my glue on the back there, and I would recommend Tombow for this because it gives you that bit of wiggle room. And I'm going to pop that in, make sure that is centred and not fouling at all. There we go. If you want to take your ruler to it, you can. I'm going to add my panel in the middle. I did actually stamp on my previous one, but because I've got a couple of die cuts, I'm just going to add those with a little adhesive to the inside. Obviously you could always save those for later if you wanted, but it just echoes the design on the front, so I would usually stamp in exactly the same way. And add that to the inside. And all that remains is for us to add our panel onto the very front. So I'm just going to pop some large dimensionals onto the back there. You might not want to put as many dimensionals on. I am, because this is going to be given by hand. But if you're posting, you might not want to have quite as much depth on it as I've got here. So do pop along to the Inspire Create Design Challenges page. I'll put the link in the description box below. There are some fabulously talented designers, and you'll get lots of fun inspiration as well on there. So this is for our colour challenge. Here it is. Here's my lovely polished pink, fresh freesia, pear pizzazz and evening evergreen. And this was my original, which used the fancy floral DSP. I do think I prefer my this one. Is prettier. I don't like the brown, but let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me again soon, and if you can hit that subscribe button, I'm always grateful for an extra subscriber. If you'd like to purchase any of the products you've seen, just pop along to Stampin' Up! And select me as your demonstrator when you check out. Thanks for watching. Bye now.